The Virtual World Society. Join us in building better realities together.
Savvy. Here I had missed the fact that your phone can transport your mind somewhere. Second thing is, I genuinely, for those 5 minutes, felt like I was looking around inside the International Space Station. Looking back again, this was tame. This was 3 degrees of freedom. They didn't have controllers. This was before the Oculus Go. It was a Gear VR. And I sat down, Ziggy went off to do his thing, and I just thought, you know what? Need to take this back to college. So I took it to college, and that set one train in motion. But I also discovered Altspace. Like the next week, I discovered Altspace. And being a language teacher, I set up an event to teach English in VR, and the rest is history. And soon after, I met Laurel. Literally, it was, sometimes people say that's the day that your life changed. I don't know if ever you've had a moment like that. Looking back, I can point to that single moment and say, my life took a turning in that direction, and I followed it with my heart, and here I am now today. That's how I got in.
Well, so I think everyone probably has similar experiences, their first time in VR. Let's sort of ask the audience, Daniel. Maybe one or two of you tell us about the first time you went into VR, what it was like. Do you have any folks that'd like to volunteer?
Let's first ask, can you remember clearly your first time? Yeah. Oh,
How
here
many
we're getting
remember
reactions. Remember clearly your first time. Okay, we've got Artist 3D. Hey, that's Paul. Hey, Artist. And then we got Doug here as well, I think. I thought it was Doug. Yeah, Artist, why don't you share quickly?
Why don't you tell?
First
Yeah,
time.
quickly.
It sounds like I was a little late getting to it because I did the Gear VR. Didn't have a Samsung phone, but I did have the access to the DK2.
And the DK2, yeah.
Yes, and this was the development kit that Oculus first put out for everybody. And as a longtime developer in flat screen VR, I thought I'd try it. But I was in the middle of a project, and I had left it on my couch for about 2 weeks. I wasn't going to touch that thing until I finished the project I was on, because I had a feeling that this thing was going to be a little bit overwhelming. And it would distract me, and I would never finish this boring little web page I was working on. And so, it was like 2 a.m, and I was just finishing up the project, and I said, finally, that's done. And I gazed over at the couch, and I was like, if I have time this evening to check that out. And I did. I opened it up, started installing the disc and everything. And my gosh, man, when I put that headset on my head, I had a couple of major epiphanies.
Yeah.
One was, I guess I don't need a 50-foot studio anymore. And
right.
And 2, I don't think I need to build a special room with padded, like a kind of Star Trek holodeck thing. It kind of it was remarkable how quickly I realized that all my illusions about a holodeck from the Star Trek series was thrown in reverse. It suddenly became a matter of just your first person perspective, and that everything emanates out from there. And I think that was pretty profound, just realizing how much like reality it was. That, wow, Palmer Luckey just came up with the most obvious thing. Put the experience where your head is.
So the question is, was that Palmer Luckey, or was he working on other people's work? For example, Tom Furness's work and others, right?
Nothing quite gave me the first-person experience like that, though, because, I had gotten into VR in the late 90s with the Virtual IO set. Nothing quite planted me in it like that. It was the vertical resolution, I think, that blew my mind, was that I could look down
Yeah.
and all the way up, and the ceiling of my studio was gone.
That's yeah, that we could have a lot of conversations about that. I do want to point out, if ever you get a chance to hang out with Artist 3D here, his name's Paul, a friend of mine. If you get a chance to visit some of his work in VR chat, please take it. Some of the most outrageous experiences I've had in VR have been at the hands of this young
fool around
personality. All right, Tom.
So we have one more person that would like to say what was like your first day, your first experience.
Yeah, does anyone want to share a little bit about how you remember putting a headset on and what it did to you? Yeah, we got Yumeta here in the front.
Yes, you can hear me.
Yeah, Yumeta. If you want to use the hand raise, if you look down to your right, there should be a raised hand. If you click that. There you go. And then I can switch your mic on. Where are you? There you go. Lovely. Now we can all hear you. Go on.
Now you can hear me. So my experience was very long ago, about a month from now.
A month ago.
Yeah, I visited my brother that he just bought the Oculus 2. And we are people who like the technology. So I tried it on, and it suddenly, boom, it was like finding the missing link of technology.
Yes.
Right instant, I knew that this was be the next thing, and it immediately pulled me into it, and found out the Altspace afterwards, and so many other places. So it's amazing experience, and I'm sure it's a game changer for all of us. And I think that we are very lucky to be living in this generation for so many revolution of technology that we're experiencing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing
Wonderful.
that. We do have a couple of other people who've raised their hand, including Maxwell. Hi, Maxwell, over there. We'll have a little bit more participation further on, if that's okay.
Right.
Wonderful.
Thank you. And I'm sure all of us have our stories about this. And certainly I had mine. Mine was probably a little bit longer ago than many of yours. But let's just suffice it to say that we are at a point in time where we have a transportation system for our senses. It really takes us to places, not just pictures of places, but takes us to places in that we think about them that way. We interact with them that way. And this is transformative in terms of, and unprecedented in terms of its power for education and training, for medicine, for design, all of these things where we can do collaboratively. And so one of the things that Daniel mentioned, that he and Laurel organized this group called Educators in VR. And up to that point in time, I had always said, this will be an amazing platform for communication and for bringing people together. And we indeed, in 1994, did a project called Green Space, where we had 4 people in the same virtual world using ISDN dial-up lines between Japan and the U.S. And this is the first time it was ever done, at least transoceanically. And it was in 94, and that is when I realized, this is going to be amazing, bringing the minds and hearts of people together. And then there's a long period of time until Educators in VR came along and invited me to be a part of their very first summit. And it was one of those kind of phenomenons, right, Daniel? Give us a synopsis of what happened then.
All right. Well, we had started running events, 1 a month and 2 a month, and every week. Laurel and I were finding our feet, and Laurel is an amazing community developer. Her ability to run events and manage volunteers and people here in VR, second to none. And a friend of mine suggested, hey, your 1-year anniversary is coming up. You should do something. You should do something big. And so I had a chat with Laurel. Said, okay, well, it's VR. We can do. How about we do 3 days of conference? yeah, great idea. I don't remember where we started out, but we said we'd do a couple of, invite some speakers, anybody want to join in a conference. And we didn't know what to expect. And it started out with 15, 20 speakers being interested. And we're like, wow, this is amazing. By the end of week 2, we had 170 speakers. And we needed space to fit them in. So February 2020, we ran a 6-day, 24/7 VR conference here in Altspace and in Engage and on other platforms. And we kept the metaverse open for 6 days. It didn't go to sleep. It felt like something had come alive.
Right.
And I felt bold, and we reached out to, we met Tom before. We'd met at AWE the year before, but I thought, well, maybe Tom might want to speak with us. And you prepared this amazing presentation. I'll never forget it, called Playing with Fire. And we had you speak, and then there was technical problems, and you had to finish after half an hour. But then there was such a demand to hear the rest of your talk. We had you back towards the end of it, and it just became a love fest. Everybody was like, "Wow, this is amazing!" It was a moment in time. It was just a moment in time, and this was 1 week before the pandemic arrived and shut everything down. A week before, we had just delivered a 6-day, 24/7 conference, the 170 speakers, with amazing volunteer teams, all filmed, all fully virtual with headsets. It was a moment in time.
It was one of the happenings. I liken it to one of the things that happened during my younger days, which was called Woodstock. Woodstock was this famous concert that just nobody realized, what would happen. And this was like a Woodstock. It was a happening. It was something time was right. People were ready for it worldwide. I met people around the world I never would have met otherwise. They never would have been able to go to a conference because it'd be too expensive. And the big thing about it, Daniel, I recall, is at the end of the conference, we were trying to compute how many pounds of carbon we use. And I think it came up with about 550 pounds carbon generated for this 6-day conference, 24 hours a day, when in fact, we'd done it in person, it would have been millions of pounds of carbon.
We had someone calculate based on best estimates. There was a member of the university who joined the conference, and it turned out there was a 95% carbon footprint savings running. And we had, I think, 3, 4, maybe 5,000 visitors to this conference, 170 speakers. Nobody had to fly anywhere, no air miles, no hotel food, no hangovers at the bar afterwards. So, although you might say some people miss that, but we discovered some. I mean, it wasn't the very first conference, because I'd actually been inspired by another conference I'd attended, much smaller. It was certainly the one that caught people's attention, and of course, because a week later, Oculus Connect got shut down, Microsoft conference got shut down, HTC Vive conference got shut down. We got inundated with calls and emails and requests like, "Can you help us? Well, how do you just do that? We need to do something. Our conference is going virtual. Help us out." So we spent the best part of the next year helping run conferences and stream and film, and working with all kinds of wonderful people. Yeah.
Well, Daniel, it's really fun to sit in this fireside here, talking, reminiscing about all the good old days, right? But now we're here. We're here today, and Daniel, you've become acquainted with the Virtual World Society. I'd like to hear, by the way, what attracted you to the society. But beyond that, here you have now this opportunity to work with an outstanding group of people that are members, and as well as the members of the board and advisors to the society. And I think we'd all like to hear the vision that you have and that we're putting together, and that you've been discussing with the board about where we go with the society. First of all, just tell us what is it that was the attractor to the getting involved in the Virtual World Society?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the time when I first met you, it was at an event in Engage, a different platform. and some friends of mine, Steve Bambury, had asked you to speak, and Steve Bambury was a hero of mine. We were running events in Altspace at the time. I always wanted to run it, and so I joined this event with you, and you were speaking about this, and I hadn't heard about you. And within 5 minutes of hearing that you had a nonprofit and would you like to support, I had signed up. I'd signed up to become an ambassador. I had recurring, like donate monthly, whatever. I was just all in. I think because I recognized your intention, and a part of that is my intention, and Laurel and my intention is that here's a technology. We're fortunate enough to have access to it and understand it in the impact it might have. We want to help other people access that and share it and make them meet and connect. There's something about this technology that is built for impact and collaboration. It's built for it. And when I heard you talking that you had started in the 60s, and you'd set up this foundation in 2015, the Virtual World Society, I felt it spoke directly to me. Here was someone else serious about the benevolent use of this technology, and I needed to get to know you. I needed to be involved. I wanted to support with just, it was like directly you were speaking to me, even though I was just one of the people in the audience. And I wrote an email to your secretary, Ava, at the time. And she read it and said, "Oh my God, love what you're doing." I explained what we were doing with Educators in VR. And I want you to introduce you to Tom. So we got on a call. And then I flew out to San Francisco and we met. And Educators in VR and Virtual World Society, we kind of partnered up and we did all this stuff. And then you asked me to join the board. And for me, that was like a dream come true, because I have my career started in education, and I'm quite a good teacher, dare I say it, and a trainer. But when the doors opened into virtual reality, it was like being let loose and being taken seriously by people like yourself and Jackie and Trond and Mark and our board members. It felt like a huge validation. That Laurel and I were on the right track, that there is indeed a need for this. There is indeed a place for humanitarian applications of this. And I had been working with refugees and migrant workers at the time. I knew that this was powerful for them too. And so that, I mean, you had me at hello kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Well, I assure you it's mutual, you know.
Yeah.
So you've had a chance to spend some time on the board with the Virtual World
Right.
Society, and not only have a chance to look at the projects that we have been doing, but where we can go in the future with this. And now with your new role as incoming executive director,
yeah,
let's all hear from you. What you see, what you envision, and what you see putting into the organization, the structure, the plans, the programs, the events of the society.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for the opportunity. So I've spent the last few months, like you said, I've been on the board for a while, listening, learning, looking. And since maybe November last year, I've been looking at developing a intuitive or a coherent structure for the Virtual Society, because I know you've done many different diverse projects, and you have some projects that are very ambitious and some projects that are kind of more grassroots. And so I've fashioned this into a bit of a map for the Virtual World Society that is based on 4 pillars for the Virtual World Society. And there are 2 central pillars and 2 additional pillars, if you like. I'd like to start with the 2 central pillars. The first central pillar is what is loosely known as bottom up. Bottom up is a program area where we run projects and programs with the community, for the community, with volunteers, where we are helping individuals and communities and families. And The focus is on being active, running events. This is part of our community development program, running events to inspire people, inform people, meet like-minded people, find volunteers, because there's a lot of work to be done. And by the way, we have some opportunities to volunteers. I'll be announcing that a little bit later on. So we have this central pillar called the either called the Impact Program, the Virtual World Society Impact Program, also known as the bottom up, the grassroots, the people, power to the people, and power for the people. The other main pillar is our Virtual Society Institute. And with the Institute, we, with amazing board members like yourself, Tom, Alvin, Graylin, Britton Heller, Marcus Shingles, Christopher Lafayette, these are some of the absolute leaders, Jackie Morey. These are some of the original founders. They've been in the game 20, 30, 40, and in Tom's case, 60 years. Our board is very well placed to develop thought leadership. And especially now, we have all this buzz around the metaverse, and the metaverse is this, the metaverse is that. Metaverse doesn't actually exist yet. We got to build it, and we have to build it carefully because we're playing with fire. So we need thought leadership, and it can't be thought leadership from vested interest and big corporations. I applaud what Meta is doing. I have my issues with them as well. You know, they've put a lot of money and development into it. You can't knock them, but we need to hold companies like that to account as well. If they're going to be gaining from our data, if we're going to be buying their devices, we have to have a say. So we need to have those kind of conversations at a thought leadership level. So we're developing a Virtual Society Institute to help inform and educate policymakers, decision makers, do some advocacy work on our own terms, to also provide professional services, because I think in this day and age, big companies, they need consulting and they need reliable consultant. Now I'm getting hit up every day on LinkedIn by chief metaverse officer of this company and that company, and it's a title. But you know, what do you really know about VR? And I know the people in Virtual Society and other organizations, they know their stuff. So we want to make ourselves available to help people who are making big decisions in this space get those decisions right, or consider aspects and a humanity first approach. I think that's a key word, humans first, right? We've had an experiment now with the internet. We've had an experiment now with social media, and we know how we can burn ourselves with that. So we're trying also to invite people to consider carefully as they build, as together we build worlds that will eventually become a freely traversable metaverse. We want to build it in a way that our generation, our kids, and the next 10 generations really benefit from it, rather than it ending up being some dystopian nightmare like some of the films made out in the past. So those are the two central pillars: our bottom-up project, the Virtual Society Impact Project program area, and the Virtual Society Institute program area, which is like top-down, if you like, trying to speak to the leaders and help them make the right decisions. And then I mentioned two other pillars. One other additional pillar is what we call feature projects. Here we have something called the Learning Living Room / the Home Spark, which we'll probably mention in just a minute. They are kind of more comprehensive projects that stand on their own. We're also working on a documentary. And Tom, later on, I have a bit of news for you that might be interesting on that front. I'll tease you with it and I'll share it another time. Yeah, so we have our feature projects, which include Home Spark, documentary, potentially a virtual reality summit, the likes of the ones that we've run in the past with educators in VR, and something called the Alliance for Good. Alliance for Good also comes under the Virtual Society Institute, where we're working with select partners to form an alliance that sign up to a charter for humanity first for the metaverse. So that's the third pillar, our feature programs. And the fourth one is a beautiful program area called our what's it called, the legacy and celebration. Tom and the board, before I joined, you founded something called the Nextant Awards. The Nextant Awards is a series of awards that are handed out each year, although we've had, I think, 1, if not 2 years gap, we're coming back, to outstanding individuals and contributions in the industry. We have a Rising Star Award, we have a Lifetime Achievement Award, we have Spirit Award. And so that's the Nextant Awards. We're building out the Nextant brand, include our newsletter and different programs. And the aim is to celebrate and acknowledge the work that is being done. And a part of that is also to educate about the history of XR, because we had a comment earlier, and artist Paul, you quite rightly said that DK1 that Palmer Luckey developed, it caught a lot of attention, but it was standing on the shoulders of giants, and we want people to understand kind of the trajectory right from the beginning. So that's roughly our program going forward. That's my vision for it anyway. Before I finish, the last thing I would like to say is we want to work with you. This is for you. We'd love it to be with you. So if you have skills and passion and interest, we will have specific opportunities for you to get involved in various volunteering programs. We're going to start slow. We're going to build it up. But this is for you. Help us build better worlds together for all. I'll make an announcement about the opportunities shortly. So, yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. Fantastic. I mean, I'm so excited about this. It's wonderful to have Daniel actually pulling all the pieces together. Let me just mention one thing about Nextant. The term Nextant. Where did it come from? As it turns out, this is something that I've been thinking about for a while. That what we need in the world today is the next sextant. Now, you know, the sextant is a navigation instrument. It is what is used with a compass, with a clock, with the nextant to navigate where we are, not only on the Earth, but in stars, space travel, and things like that. And the problem is, of course, right now, the old ways of navigating don't work anymore because we can't see the horizon. We're at a very high sea state, lots of things going on. We're sort of in chaos, right, Daniel? And so how do we go to using this? How do we come up with a new navigation system that is going to take us in the direction we should go? Because there are all kinds of different directions we can take. We have this embarrassment of riches in terms of technology. And so that is the question. What is the next instrument? So I am proposing Nextant is that instrument. And the Nextant navigation to your heart. You know, you will know in your heart and in your conscience what is good and what is right. That's the only thing we can rely upon, I believe, in the future, because they're going to have so many voices that are coming. We just got to go into our gut, into our heart, see what's going on, and try to do good. And the Nextant now, the Nextant prize, the awards, are ways that we can recognize, and Nextant medallions, recognize people who are doing these kinds of things. It's not people that have high visibility. They're everyday folks that are just passionate and doing their job and trying to make the world a better place. And we don't want to necessarily, that's where we want to focus, because that's the grassroots upon which the virtual world society builds. So we're going to think about the Nextant. When we mention the Nextant newsletter, the Nextant prize, it's really about a new way of navigating into our future.
Can I just share a little something that struck me when we were talking earlier, that I thought was an interesting thought when we're talking about your contribution to this technology and this reality. So I don't know how many of you know